Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here today. We're here to speak out against the deeply troubling proposed federal funding cuts to the Pediatric Brain Tumor Consortium. And I can say what led me to call us all here together today is that my childhood friend is an oncology nurse at Memorial Sloan Kettering in New York. And she walked into work one day and found out that this incredibly important life-saving work that she has been a part of was maybe going to be completely wiped out by federal funding cuts. And she asked me if I would bring attention to this and shine a light on this so people can understand what's at stake, because I don't think this is what the American people want. And so that's why we're here today. Pediatric brain tumors are the deadliest form of childhood cancer. And for over 25 years, the consortium's affiliated hospitals, including Memorial Sloan Kettering here in New York, have conducted cutting-edge clinical trials, pioneering therapies that have given these children who are stricken by pediatric cancer a fighting chance. And for many patients and the families, these trials that are being conducted by the Pediatric Brain Tumor Consortium, which is the PBTC, these are the only options that they have left when conventional therapies have failed. Last month, as I mentioned, the PBTC was informed that it would receive no federal funding beyond March of 2026. And without this sustained funding, those trials will stop, progress will stall, and families will be left with fewer or no options. And for families facing the nightmare, the heartbreaking fear of dealing with pediatric brain tumor diagnoses, the consortium is not just a research initiative, but it is a beacon of hope that there is going to be a chance to heal their child or their family member that they love. So let's be really clear about what is at stake. These cuts would deny children access to therapies that may be their only chance at survival. And abruptly canceling this funding will throw ongoing trials into uncertainty and leave families wondering what the future holds for their children. For patients who are in these PBTC trials, every second counts. And over the years, Republicans and Democrats have consistently and always together in a bipartisan fashion worked to support pediatric cancer research and give hope to families and children struggling with these devastating diagnoses. That's why today I am leading a bipartisan, bicameral push to urge the administration to restore this funding before it expires in March. I'm proud to stand up for Memorial Sloan Kettering and for the Long Islanders, the New Yorkers who have benefited from the life-saving treatment that has been conducted in the PBTC. So I want to thank Dr. Ira Dunkel, who is the chair of the PBTC, and TC, and David Ahrens, President and CEO of the National Brain Tumor Society, for joining us here today to raise awareness of the chaos that these cuts will cause. And you'll also hear from Jillian, who is a pediatric cancer survivor and a New York native, who will tell us her firsthand account about how pediatric cancer research led to the treatment that saved her life and enabled her to now be a college student, a thriving college student. So I'm going to assure you that I will do everything I can to fight against these proposed cuts and to ensure that the PBTC and other research programs like it are fully funded going forward. Because this is not a partisan issue. It is about our children. It is about American families and the fundamental values that we share. So thank you all for being here and shining a light on this really important issue. And with that, I'd like to introduce Dr. Ira Dunkel. Again, he is the chair of the PBTC and an oncologist at Memorial Sloan Kettering. Thank you so much, Dr. Duncan.
Thank you very much, Congresswoman Gillen, and thank you for your interest in children with brain tumors and the PBTC issue. I thought I would just very briefly explain to the audience what the PBTC is, what we do, what the implications of the loss of the PBTC might be. So I think, as you've heard already, the PBTC is a consortium of 16 hospitals, large cancer centers, and large children's hospitals across North America. It was founded in 1999 with the mission to try to develop better and safer treatments for children with poor prognosis, difficult to treat brain tumors. And in the 25 plus years that we've existed, we've initiated more than 70 clinical trials and enrolled more than 2,000 patients onto the clinical trials. And this has resulted in some important breakthroughs and many high-profile scientific papers and international meeting presentations. The way the PBTC is funded is that every 5 years, the National Cancer Institute would issue a request for application that would prompt us to submit a grant application that would provide 5 years of funding. And recently, we've been receiving about $4 million a year of funding to support our efforts. And I guess 5 weeks ago, we were informed that we would not have the opportunity to apply for continued funding, and that therefore the PBTC would cease to exist when our current funding expires on March 31st, 2026, or shortly after that. So a short-term consequence of this is that we felt compelled to suspend permitting new patients to enroll on our studies and to devote our efforts to providing access to the therapies for patients already on trial, and to sort of wrap up our efforts so we could publicly present the data and share it with doctors, scientists, families around the world who could benefit from it. So the short-term implications of this are that we are not able to accept any patients onto our 6 currently active clinical trials. And we are doing our best, if the decision is going to stand, to transfer some of these studies to another network called the PEP-CTN. And I think we're all diligently working to try to make that possible. But in the best case scenario, there will be loss of access to these trials for some extended period of time, probably for about a year. I think I'll stop there, and I'll be happy to take questions later, Congresswoman.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Dr. Dunkel, for sharing your insight as to this problem. And now we'll hear from David Ahrens, who is the CEO and the president of the National Brain Tumor Society. David.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Congresswoman Gillen, for your leadership and for bringing us here together today to discuss this very important issue that the Congresswoman and Dr. Dunkel laid out. And thank you to your staff for bringing us together as well. I want people to know that the response to this situation has been overwhelming. Parents, kids, researchers all across the country have been astounded at the National Cancer Institute's decision that sort of came out of nowhere about to discontinue the Pediatric Brain Tumor Consortium that has been going on for 25 years. We have launched a petition, and now nearly 4,000 people have signed our petition that will go to the National Cancer Institute in another week, calling for the protection of these pediatric brain tumor clinical trials and to reverse the decision to eliminate the Pediatric Brain Tumor Consortium. But if the decision is going to be final, to at least make sure that the kids are protected, the funding is protected, there's a focus on brain tumors, and that these clinical trials are well transitioned. But let's make no mistake, we believe the Pediatric Brain Tumor Consortium should continue, and the National Cancer Institute should work to improve it, not eliminate it. It's a vital part of our cancer ecosystem. There are other philanthropy-funded hospitals, consortiums, and networks, but the PBTC is too important to our community to lose in the name of efficiency and streamlining. This should be something that is mended and helped and strengthened, not eliminated at this time. pediatric brain tumors are the leading cause of cancer death in children nationally, age 0 to 14. And this is why the Pediatric Brain Tumor Consortium is just absolutely critical if our nation is going to make a difference against pediatric brain tumors as this #1 cancer killer of kids, affecting every state, every district, every town. There are kids facing brain tumors, and we have to turn the tide and have great clinical trials and be fostering innovation in this country. The Congresswoman said on a bipartisan basis and a nonpartisan basis, our country usually comes together to fund biomedical research and innovation. And for kids, this is especially as important. We're just making advancements against pediatric brain tumors. We saw just a couple months ago the first ever drug approved against DIPG, one of the worst types of childhood brain cancers. And some of this work came out of the PBTC, the Pediatric Brain Tumor Consortium. So we've seen how the PBTC can go from discovery to delivery, from research to medicines. And that's what we're urging everyone to come together around, is how can we make sure this network stays in place, the funding is restored and continued, and that we make the right decisions on behalf of children and parents. We need the NCI to really commit here to making sure there's no net reduction of funding for early phase pediatric brain tumor clinical trials, and some real hard thought about the decision that it's made.
Well, thank you, David. Could you share where people can find that petition if they want to sign it?
100%. Thank you for that. Braintumor.org. Go to braintumor.org, and they can find that petition, sign their name, and join forces with all of us to help send a statement that pediatric brain tumor research needs to continue, and that #1 are helping children who really often only have one chance at a clinical trial to get the best chance possible at survival and quality of life.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that information, David. Certainly this is something that I think we can work beyond the partisan gridlock in Congress and come together to say prioritizing the health of our children is our top priority. And also making sure America, the United States, has always been a beacon of hope, not just for Americans, but for other people in other countries, because we have been at the cutting edge of medical research. And I can assure you that in my position on the Science, Space, and Technology Committee, I am making sure that I am getting the message across that we need to continue to be that leader. And the way we do that is not by cutting funds to research, but by enhancing funds. So thank you so much for sharing that. And now we'll have the opportunity to hear a success story, a story about how putting this investment of our government dollars can lead to really positive, incredible outcomes, the kind that every family wants to see. So Gillian, if you would just share a few words about your story, we'd be very grateful.
Thank you to Congresswoman Gillen for hosting this really important conversation. My name is Jillian Okimoto. I was born and raised in New York, and when I was 11 years old, I was diagnosed with osteosarcoma, a rare bone cancer. Well, this changed everything for me and my family. At 11 years old, I was isolated from all of my friends. I was constantly full of fear, and I watched my parents and my sister suffer as well. It has made me eternally grateful for life. But the reason I'm here today is because of medical research. I was one of the really lucky ones because the tumor in my right femur had not spread to other parts of my body. My treatment consisted of 9 months of chemotherapy and an experimental process to regrow the gap in my bone. After 9 surgeries, I can now run and jump, and that's the direct result of research. Without it, I may have had an amputation or a knee replacement, and we don't even know if the treatment would have been successful. Now I'm 5 years cancer-free, and I just started college last year. I'm here today because I'm alarmed at the Trump administration's attacks on cancer research, specifically pediatric cancer research. For the past 8 months, the Trump administration has focused relentlessly on cutting life-saving medical research that could help doctors save other kids' lives, the kind of research that saved my life. And we're already seeing what these cuts mean for children. The Pediatric Cancer Tumor Consortium announced that it would close operations in 2026. Children who already plan to enroll in like potentially groundbreaking clinical trials are now being turned away. And children who were already enrolled in certain trials will have to stop treatment, even when it could save their lives. It's scary for me as someone who has friends in clinical trials, and it's terrifying for any family that has had a kid diagnosed with cancer. Now, I've lost many friends to the same disease I had. Ali Tamayose was just a month older than me, and she'd grown up in my dad's hometown, and she loved dogs and soccer, and her younger sister, Keely. Adriana Pani had been my roommate countless times in the hospital, and we watched Harry Potter together on the TV so many times. Camille Wall had been my roommate when we visited Washington, D.C. together, and Penelope Abalera was quick-witted and funny. She loved books, and she was always endlessly optimistic. And I think of these four beautiful women every single day. And so I just don't understand how people can hear their stories and hear my story and decide that the answer is to cut funding for kids like us. Now, this is the kind of work that both Republicans and Democrats have always supported. It would save lives and lower costs for New Yorkers and hundreds of thousands of American families. And now it's looking like much of this work won't continue. So I'm really grateful for Congresswoman Gillen for highlighting this challenge facing doctors and researchers who just want to save lives. I'm hopeful that it'll make a difference and that Democrats and Republicans in Congress will come together, stop the Trump cuts, and fund this work as they have in the past. No, thank you.
Thank you, Jillian. Thank you for sharing that story. It's really important for people to hear that. And I think all of the reporters who have joined us today, and I really appreciate you amplifying this message because I do believe the majority of Americans would support saving the PBTC and saving research dollars to help American families not suffer devastating losses from cancer. So thank you so much. And with that, I guess, Vidya, you can take over on the questions.